Smith and Stu. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. And 3, adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held January 25th. Do we have a motion to adopt this minute?
So moved, yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Midroff. Second, Councilor Stu. Questions or comments pertaining to the minutes? All those in favor? Thank you. No delegations at this point, but we have some folks here that will speak to us shortly. So I'll just quickly deal with item 5A, Finance. Dale sends us regrets. He has a family item that he has to attend to. Mr. Perlowski?
Yes, Your Worship, I'll speak to the report if I may. So the report lays out the proposed budget schedule, and I'd just like to go through it. We obviously have to get the bylaw, the tax rate and the financial plan bylaw done before May 15th. So it has to be adopted, quite frankly, by May 13th this year because of the calendar. And working back, so the Director of Finance, Dale Cordes, proposes the following, that the regular council meeting May 9th, we adopt the financial plan and tax rate bylaws, one before the other. We'll step that back to the 25th of April then, 3 readings of the bylaws. And stepping it back one more time, April 20th, on a Wednesday, public consultation meeting on the financial plan. So he's also proposing that we have our initial council budget public workshop preliminary meeting on February 24th. You'll note a theme here, we're talking Wednesdays when it comes to the budget meetings. So the initial one, February 24th, and keep the dates for March 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th, and the 13th open, depending on how the budget workshops go. It's also expected that the actual budget consultation meeting will be confirmed on the 13th, and that again should be April 20th. It's important to remind members of the public, and I know it's council's intention, that the provincial legislation have one official consultation as a minimum, but quite frankly, as all the budget workshops will be open to the public, they indeed form part of the consultation process throughout. So members of the public will see as council and staff work through the budget. And as I understand from council's perspective, last year it worked very well. So we're not looking for a resolution, but rather we're looking to mark calendars at this point. So we will then arrange for the preliminary meeting February 24th. We'll put markers out for May 9th, April 25th, and April 20th. And we will carry on with the workshops as required on Wednesdays in March and ultimately April 15th.
Okay.
The only date that might be a conflict is for workshops is the 23rd of March being the event, which will be GM.
That's right. And again,
A lot of us will have to be there.
That's right, Your Worship. So we have some flexibility built in. Those were 5 dates. We can, I'll note the 23rd is off, and we will AGM eventually. So again, a calendar point for yourselves and the public.
Okay.
Is February 24th in stone? Or can I can't be here for that. I have other, February 24th?
It's the 23rd, March 23rd.
No, February 24th, the Wednesday preliminary meeting. Is that in stone or could that be moved?
Yes, that should be in stone. We should get that in.
But it cannot be moved to Tuesday or Thursday?
We've looked at all the dates and all the evening affairs happening in town and the schedules. There's never a good time, quite frankly, Your Worship. So it would seem to us Wednesdays would be the best dates, other than trying to take alternate Mondays or trying to take council time on the same nights, and that's unworkable.
We promise not to spend any money. Okay. Sounds very good. And next we have item B, our administrator pertaining to the Pollution Control Center. And as well, we have a couple of distinguished gentlemen here joining us tonight. Thank you. And they'll be here to flesh out the details so we don't water it down, so to speak. And they promise not to waste our time. 2 PCC jokes in one. Pretty tacky, eh? Mr. Forlowski.
Let's hope they prove their utility.
Yeah.
You're right, Your Honor, this deals with the Pollution Control Center and repairs that are required, upgrades, engineering, etc. I'll just go over some of the history for members of the public and yourselves to put the item in context. The whole PCC was originally designed by Dayton and Knight. Opus wasn't there at the time, I guess. Back in 1977. And they did expand the treatment plant back in 1999, where a third lagoon was added. And essentially, since that time, there has been no significant upgrades or repairs to the plant itself. You recall 2 years ago, we did an emergency repair to the outflow pipe running down the creek, the Silver Hope Creek, and we armored the banks as well and moved the pipe back into a more original position. According to the plant operators, which is our staff and the MOE, we have been exceeding discharge limits, and this is dependent on time of year, conditions, etc. So we are getting at that point where really to stay within current regulations and ultimately, and I believe our presenters will talk to this a little later, to stay within future plan regulations, we obviously need to upgrade this particular bit of infrastructure. Unfortunately, it's not a quote-unquote sexy piece of infrastructure. People don't see it. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's out of mind because people just flush toilets, unlike paved roads. So it may not be as attractive, so to speak, for many members of the public to spend dollars on. During the 28th September meeting, Council will recall that they endorsed staff's report to accept a proposal to have Opus Dayton and Knight undertake the consulting and design engineering for these required upgrades. And luckily I have with us today Mr. Roger Warren and Mr. Tyler Barber from Opus Dayton and Knight, who will discuss so far the work been done, the design and the proposed cost looking at it, and in particular speaking to the outfall repair that needs to be done rather urgently. We can't wait for a fish window. We can't wait till later. We need to get approval to move forward on that now and get it done as soon as possible. And of course, doing so in such a manner reduces the amount of consultation required and quite frankly speeds things up. And again, I'm hoping Mr. Warren or Mr. Barber, if they so wish, can explain the process a little bit. If not, I can give you some detail on that as well. And the alternative, quite frankly, as mentioned in the report, is if we don't get it done, we could potentially be out of regulatory compliance as far as effluent, and we have a problem with the pressures, the back pressures. When the Fraser is high, the effluent doesn't flow down into it, it backs up into the PCC and the manholes and all the rest of it, and there is some localized flooding of treated effluent. So it is a rather urgent matter. The rest of the upgrade design has to be done as well, and you'll see in the report that there are some timelines associated and some recommendations as far as from here 12 months out, or till when the final report's received, 12 months out, 36 months out, etc. And this, of course, will enter the asset management plan. We'll take the condition reports and all the rest of that, and that will be inputted and ideally form part of that as well. So if council so wishes, I would like to call forward Mr. Roger Warren and Mr. Tyler Barber to give you a small presentation and answer any questions you may have on the technicality.
Much appreciated. Welcome, Mr. Warren, Mr. Barber. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. And councillors, we're very happy to be here tonight to present what we found, and Tyler's going to kick things off and give you a bit of the background, and then I'll carry on with some of the upgrades that we found to take under advisement.
Alright, so I'm Tyler, this is Roger. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. We're really excited to be working on this project. Next slide. So we're going to start off with just a little bit of background about the Pollution Control Center. It's a simple process that a lot of small municipalities utilize. It's just 3 aerated lagoon cells. These lagoon cells use oxygen to treat the wastewater, to remove BOD, which is biochemical oxygen demand, and total suspended solids. Those are the 2 main things that the regulatory bodies look for. So the oxygen is supplied through, there's 3 centrifugal blowers that were installed in the 1979 design, and they supply air to diffusers, which are at the bottom of the 3 lagoon cells, to supply the oxygen. And over time, these diffusers were replaced in the 1999 upgrade, but they only have a design life of typically 10 to 15 years. So it's starting to get to the end of that design life, which is why we were consulted in the initial phase in September or so to replace the diffusers for a second upgrade. So if you continue to the next slide. The third lagoon cell was also added in 1999, and we, as John mentioned, we want to talk about the outfall. And so this is the outfall which was done in the initial design, and so the diffusers were done to have about a 2-foot gap above the bottom of the Fraser River. And it appeared, what we've noticed while we were working on replacing the diffusers, that the operators reported issues with the outfall not being able to get wastewater out of the cells. And so we think that the diffusers are pinched or covered, or sedimentation has occurred in the river over the last 45 or so years. So if we go to the next slide. Also important, we want to talk about the regulatory issues that John had mentioned. First off, the wastewater treatment plant operates under a Ministry of Environment permit, and they set the max BOD and TSS at 45 and 60 milligrams per liter.
Can you explain BOD and TSS?
Yeah, of course. So BOD is the biochemical oxygen demand. It's just a way to measure the organic matter in wastewater. And so if you're sending high BOD loads to something like the Fraser River, it sucks the dissolved oxygen out of the water, creates major environmental impacts. TSS is just total suspended solids, so it's just the solid matter in the wastewater. And this is the part of the report that was submitted by the Pollution Control Center in August. They're sampling their BOD limit. Their BOD value is 119 milligrams per liter, and the limit is at 45. As far as we can tell, the Ministry of Environment hasn't flagged this as an issue, even though it very well could be. Also, the federal government has enacted under the new Fisheries Act in 2012 a wastewater systems effluent regulation, which requires average BOD and average TSS to be less than 25 milligrams per liter. And so what we've been looking at for this current upgrade is going to be the lagoon's performance over the next 20-year design life. And we want to make sure that the lagoon is going to be able to meet these federal and provincial regulations, because they're a requirement to be met. Both of them are, even though it's kind of unclear what's going to happen if the federal and the provincial governments are going to meet and create some sort of harmonized regulation. But currently there are 2 separate ones that have to be met. Future requirements may be disinfection. That includes adding chlorine or a UV disinfection chamber, as a large portion of other treatment plants along the Fraser River have to have some sort of disinfection. So if we go to the next slide. So the upgrades that we're looking at now, as I showed you, the plant has had issues meeting the BOD regulation. And for example, this is one of the lagoon cells, one of the diffuser arms where the blowers send air is completely out of service because the diffusers have broken and it's just blowing air out one hole, and it is a waste of oxygen and energy. So this has reduced the treatment volume in this lagoon by about half. That's predominantly the main issue going on with the treatment plant currently. And this will, with the other diffusers that are still kind of working, their performance has degraded over the last 15 years, and it's time for them to be replaced. The outfall, so the outfall goes, there's an outfall pipe. So if you are taking the picture, behind you is the third lagoon cell, and the outfall pipe goes through this manhole structure, which was built in the 1979 design, and all the way out to the Fraser River. And it is, in this picture, you can tell it's overflowing, and it's not supposed to do that unless the 200-year flood is going on, which would put the Fraser River flood level at about the same elevation as the manhole structure. So obviously there's something blocking the diffuser ports and causing the manhole to overflow. This is just causing a chain reaction of events upstream of this, which could potentially cause the lagoon berms to overflow in due course. Additionally, while we've been looking at the treatment plant, it's been difficult as there's a limited amount of data. There's very little influent sampling data, so we're kind of basing it off of what textbooks tell us to, but it's much better to have some sort of influent wastewater characterization available. so that we know how well the treatment plant will perform and have a much better understanding of it in a 20-year sort of window that we're looking at. And if we go to the next slide, to talk more about the outfall, which we've noticed, this is definitely considered an urgent upgrade. So here's the 3 lagoon cells, and the outfall kind of goes out this way. The treatment plant operators actually put some red dye down the outfall pipe, and they walked out the line to here, and they saw the red dye coming. It's kind of hard in this picture to see, but there's red dye coming through the sand. So it's pretty evident that the last 45 years has caused some sedimentation issues on the diffuser ports. And as far as we can tell, the ports are just some rubber hoses. So they've likely just collapsed and are pinched and are creating major head losses to the system. So that should be excavated and cleaned out and fixed in the interim to ensure that it doesn't start overflowing upstream of this location anymore. And next one. And so Roger will talk about some of the solutions that we have to these issues that we have.
Thanks, Tyler. So as Tyler was saying, the main focus right now is to get the outfall working again. The sediment deposition on top of those outfall diffuser tubes appears to be not working properly. And they were meant to be rubber tubes to allow boulders and stuff to sort of not smash them as the debris goes down the river. But it's also evident that the sedimentation from the adjacent creek has influenced how the sediments have built up over time. And the hydraulics to get the effluent out into the river is really urgent now. And the whole goal is to try and do this before the river comes up again, making it really, it's got to be done when the river's low. You can't get the machine in there to dig the gravels out when it comes up. So the time is of the essence, and the lower the river, the easier it's going to be to try and at least get that part of the diffuser re-exposed and working again, so you don't have this upstream hydraulic bottleneck. So that's the initial big urgency. Unfortunately, we don't know what we're up against because we can't go and see it. So we've made a fairly generous allowance, we think, in the budget numbers to try and go in there, spend a day or two, or maybe not to a week, to try and excavate it and get it working so the effluent gets into the river and not over the banks in this coming freshet season. And I can't tell you if it's going to be 1 in 200 year event or whatever, but the hydraulics are not working well at all right now. So it's urgent. So the next thing, I guess the next slide. Thank you. And sort of, we looked at the treatment as the VOD and TSS performance of the lagoon system, and how the detention time in the cells should work, and how it's related to the growth expectations 20 years out for the district as a whole. And it appears that if you use textbook numbers, you may need some future upgrades as well as just to replace the aeration system, but the intermediate steps are to get the current infrastructure there renovated back to where it was in 1997, which involves replacing the diffusers, getting them all nice and even, and putting lots of oxygen in the cells again so the biology can work properly. And in conjunction with that work, you've got to take the sludge that's accumulated over the bottom of the lagoons, because it's an opportunity to do so, and it's been accumulating in the lagoons again for like the last 20 years almost. So it's a bit of a, you're going to go in there to do the diffuser work, you do the sludge at the same time. So that's sort of the intermediate term kind of goals. And during that time frame, we're recommending the district undertake a really good monitoring and sampling program so we understand where you're at. And then, so I guess that's the intermediate term upgrades. So the next slide, please. So, and then the intermediate term, which is like 12 to 36 months, when we get that initial data and we're seeing how well the system's performing, we can reanalyze where the district of Hope's lagoons are performing that, and then decide if there's future treatment to be done, how much, and what that means. So that's we're doing this in a staged approach so that we really understand what's necessary to get to where we are and where you want to go. And it's and like we say, we could use textbook numbers, but we prefer not to. because it could be too conservative, in which case you're spending money which you don't have to. That said, as Tyler said, there are new federal government rules, those WISR rules, which may impact the status quo regardless. So you may need intermediate term treatment regardless to meet those new criteria. So this is some intermediate upgrades. There's an opportunity to consider mechanical screening, which would help improve the performance of the lagoons by taking out the inorganics. It also can help a little bit on the performance of the lagoons. The next one is the outfall remediation. If your outfall is in a bad location because of changing in the river morphology, the sediment deposition that changes as the river changes over time, then we have to understand that so that you're not going into the river every 2 years to reestablish those diffusers. So you want to do a bit of work to analyze how that river is performing, where that current diffuser is, and decide whether you have to extend it, say, for example, that's the obvious one, get into a deeper part of the river where maybe there's more velocity, less sediment deposition. Deposition zones are low velocity, stuff settles out. And something's obviously changed over the last 20 years there. Because it worked well for, as far as we know, the last 10 or 12 years, and suddenly, maybe not suddenly, but slowly it's gotten to the point it's at. So again, it's a staged approach here for your outfall. We want to understand how the river's changed. There may be some dilution modeling to be done as well, really get a cross-section and some velocity information about the river, and then decide if there's a better place to avoid this going long-term. And then the upgrading of the biological process, like I say, once we understand what we're up against, there's multiple solutions which are available on the same footprint of land. And then effluent flow metering, the existing weir structure appears to be inaccurate at high volume flows, so we want to fix that so that the monitoring going on in the rivers where it has to be for environmental regulatory reasons. In your permit you have a maximum flow and you're supposed to know what that is accurately. So next slide please. So long term, some of the longer term work that may be required is new blowers. They're at the end of their life, but they're still running well. With maintenance, one of the motors currently broken, but has to be rewound to get it back in service, but there's redundancy there for the time being. The effluent pump station was always something that may be involved or necessary at the plant. As flows get up, the outflow only has a certain capacity under gravity, so you may need, as your flows go up, an effluent pump station when the river level is high to get the flows through. We don't know, but the hydraulics seem to indicate when you get up to about 4,000 cubic meters a day, which would be a fairly wet, weak kind of flow at the lagoon, we think. At a high river level, you're either going to pump or you're going to have problems. But that's never happened in the last 20 years. So, but the flows probably haven't been that high until that's sustained, and your river hasn't been at the 200 level. So, you know, you got to understand the frequency of the events all lining up to give you the worst case for that to happen. But going forward 20 years, your flows will probably increase a bit. So it's just something that may require long term. And of course, Tyler talked about effluent disinfection. That's usually a regulatory requirement for all other discharges in the Fraser River. It's to meet the receiving water, recreational receiving water requirements for discharges to the Fraser River, which is something that we call fecal coliforms. There's a limit for it. And again, hydraulically, that would go at the back of your treatment plant for the outfall. So again, to make that work with your hydraulic profile going at that pipe, we may have to pump to get it to go by gravity most of the time. So there's some ramifications around if that's going to be required in the future. So that's our findings in a nutshell. It's a lot to digest in a short period of time. We've sort of gone from 0 to 100% in 20 minutes. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and you know, far away. We're here. We're willing to try and answer any questions you may have, or let us know how we can. If you got any questions?
Sounds good. Counselor Erickson?
So, read through all the data you gave us, which was a lot. The main pond that you need to clean out to put the aeration, is that pond 3?
No, it's all of them.
It's all of it, you gotta clean all of them up.
Yeah, one at a time sequentially,
Okay, and then you put in the aeration,
one at a time, yes.
and that's the initial treatment that you want, you think should be done.
Yes, the diffusers have failed. They've got like a 10, 12-year lifespan. The plastic diffusers crack and harden up and they don't work anymore. You get these big bubbles coming up. They're not the fine bubble, but you need to get the oxygen transferred into the water.
Yep. Additional questions from council?
If I can, your worship, so we're clearly looking for a recommendation, or sorry, resolution regarding the outfall repair immediately. But just to remind you, we're still awaiting, obviously, the final report, the final engineering drawings and the RFP. As we move forward in budget deliberations, we'll bring forward the stage 1 repairs, try to synchronize and identify what granting opportunities can be leveraged against that to make as much economic sense as possible.
So I walked out there the other day, up to the Fraser where that goes out, and we'd have to get at that before end of March, because that's when the lowest water is. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah, so we have to do that real soon. I think end of March, the water starts coming up again.
Yeah, I think
June's the high.
that's correct. We said we're trying to do this work to get it set up now, middle of February, and get it completed by the end of March.
Yeah.
That's our targets, and unfortunately, there's permitting and getting fisheries when people lined up and biologists when they actually go in and do the work. But we're trying to expedite that, so at least get the ducks in a row to try and get that in going, so.
Councilor Miller?
Thank you through you. That was sort of my question, was where are we with Ministry of Environment and permitting and things like that? I mean, that's often a big time lag, but there's a way to
Yeah, we
make that happen.
We've told some of the regulatory agencies that this has to be done on an emergency basis under notification, which is a bit faster process than a non-emergency full fisheries permit kind of application. And
We
they
can
understand that.
Base that on numbers of our discharge and effluent.
It's based on the fact that if it's not done, there's a potential for sewage to go to the banks. And it's kind of an emergency notification work can be done under notification.
Okay.
That's what they tell us, so we're hoping that yes, we can get the appropriate approvals and quotation marks in place to get it done.
Okay. So I'll just read out the motion as a suggested, and maybe put a motion on the table and see if you have enough to make that happen. Recommendation is that council direct staff to undertake the urgent repairs to the pollution control center outfall to a maximum of $100,000, and that council direct staff to prepare the remainder of the PCC lagoon repair and upgrade project as a shovel-ready project to qualify for grant purposes. So do we have a motion to that effect? Councillor Stewart, thank you. Councillor Smith, second. Councillor Lott?
This is the right time to ask the question, but, you know, there was the infrastructure grant that we applied for through a partnership, provincial and federal. Would it be possible to change that application for a project like this? Is that potential?
Well, I think with Mr. Trudeau's new programs coming out.
We haven't officially reapplied for the second intake of that program.
Your worship, we're looking at all of that, possibly the option of reapplying or amending a grant, the second tranche of the infrastructure grant that you're talking about, and other grants, including gas tax, etc. So quite frankly, again, once the numbers and the report's finalized, as opposed to the outfall repairs, that's part of our job to try to identify those opportunities. And at most, we would be looking certainly to include only the stage 1 repairs at this time anyway, and then we'll forecast out for stage 2, stage 3, which buys us a little more time. And at that point, we will have a full asset management plan come into play as well.
Sounds good. Motion's on the table. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item C, we have a report from Mr. Forlosky pertaining to BC Transit. As council is well aware, the BC Transit organization has put a freeze on funding created some hard feelings with many communities because, of course, we were toying with the idea of putting transit down the valley, tying Hope to Chilliwack, or Hope Agassiz Chilliwack. So the recommendation, and I think it's a good one, is that council requests the Fraser Valley Regional District Board to advocate for the problem to increase the provincial share of transit funding to facilitate future regional transit systems in Hope and Agassiz to enable potential economic growth and improve the quality of life for residents of Hope. So. Okay. Councilor Medlock moving?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll just second
Go
it.
ahead.
Seconder? Councilor Stephen? Okay. Councilor Medlock?
I was wondering if this was a motion that we could maybe bring forward as well to our LNLGA association and for the VBCEM, because it does affect more than just our municipality, but it might have more weight if it was through those associations.
Your worship, that sentiment is exactly correct, and that's why we're working and partnering with the FVRD and ideally try to gain momentum further down the valley and coalesce more partners in this and more support from other municipalities vis-a-vis BC Transit and the provincial government, and indeed perhaps the federal government, depending on how they want their federal monies to flow. So this item will have to be brought before the FVRD board clearly if approved, and yes, we will pull every lever we can to get support for this.
The other thing, maybe, I don't know if we can have a separate motion or if this is considered a friendly amendment to the motion, but I would like to also have a meeting with MLA Thomas about this. I think it's important enough that we can maybe add it to a couple of other items that we have to talk to him about, but we certainly should address him directly.
I can just arrange a meeting, Your worship.
Yeah. But I think in motion form, it's always good to have it.
Hasn't the region district discussed this just recently?
We have, but it was more a motherhood statement. It wasn't Hope Chilliwack specific. No, it was because this cutback, this freeze affects every community that has transit. So every community in the Lower Mainland is, and Fraser Valley Regional District is concerned about this, but this of course is Hope specific. Okay, motion on the table.
And if I can add then perhaps an amended and that a meeting with the MLA be set up as soon as practical to discuss the situation.
Sure. I know that's something that Mr. Thrones will be keen on working on, so. Or maybe not keen, but he'll do it for us anyways. Okay. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries, thank you. And item D, report from the update on the 753 Waterworks issue. Now there's not a huge amount of new information here, but at the last council meeting, as council recollects, we requested that our admin staff seek out something in writing as to the effect of 753 is willing to negotiate with the district and relinquish their water system. So they have done that, as the package indicates, and Mr. Fordowski, if you'd like to speak to it.
That's correct, Your Worship, and a few other details. I was directed before the end of February to report back on the feasibility and ideally outline the steps required and perhaps even some timelines as far as getting to a point of negotiations. And you'll see I've produced a table, but first off, it all stops at feasibility, and in this case we finally did get on February 2nd notification that a majority of the shareholders are willing to discuss negotiation, and they tell me that the third shareholder, a very minority shareholder, will indeed come aboard when that person returns from vacation in the States. And here you can see an outline of the process. We roughed it out verbally last time, but a couple of tasks. We've already received written commitment from 753 owners of their willingness to negotiate. We now need to further this and investigate to undertake an engineering study. And here I look forward to the operations director, the new one, when he shows up, in producing such an engineering study as paid for by 753, using our scope and us informing the products to be produced. And I've been in discussion with the Office of the Water Comptroller and all of this and confirmed details. Then we see the completion of the new well by 753 that's ongoing now, regardless. That needs to be done, and ideally that can be confirmed by July, we hope. Analyze the 753 financials, which the Director of Finance will undertake at some point, and we hope that to be done by September. Again, there's a lot on the go, but we can do that concurrently. And by financial, clearly it's to confirm the financial state, the accounts receivable, the accounts payable, and overall get all the information so council can have that on the table when they consider what upgrades are required, what's required from an asset management point of view, what repairs are needed right now, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately, what resources can be directed at it should such a transfer be negotiated, and at what cost. So we'll receive that engineering study, ideally September as well. We would then, as a staff, take all of that material back, do a complete analysis, and make recommendation in October. And then we would look to, and we would bring this before council in October. Of course, there'd be time to consider it ahead of time, we'd send that out. And it's possible that between October and December, all things proceeding very well with no hiccups, and indeed, from council's point of view, the numbers work, and the politics work, and the rest of it works, we could be into negotiations and potentially have those finalized by the end of the year. And the official transfer would be subject to conditions of negotiation. When the exact handover would be, for example, who would be responsible for accounts payable? Would we get them to be responsible? Would we take on some of that, et cetera, et cetera? Who would we write off bad debts? All of that has yet to be discussed and indeed confirmed as to where 753 is financially. So we can't really put down a date on when the official transfer would happen. So that is the framework that we propose to work to for council to enable you to take a decision, or at least consider a decision, Your Worship. And that is where we're at now. So if council then does resolve that staff continue with the work, we'll work to the table.
Okay. Do we have a motion to that effect? Okay, Councilor Erickson? To work towards. Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Councilor Erickson?
Through you, hasn't there been many engineering studies done on this project? And one just recently in the last year or so by Wellman?
As far as I know, the last engineering study, the recent one related to the new well that they're putting in and water capacities flows. It's not infrastructure focused, and certainly it didn't have the intent of comparing our infrastructure and what's required to come into our system and what we would need, what standards, what fire flows, et cetera, et cetera. And there was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, one directed at a subdivision, which again was focused more on that, and there were issues with that report as well.
I thought there was reading through this, there was 3 or 4 engineering studies over the last few years. And I think it was in the report from the government just recently that we read. And that basically everything's, it gave the history of how long everything's gonna still last, projected history. And once the well is up and running, it sounded like everything was in pretty good shape. According to the last notes we got, minutes we got a couple meetings back.
Your Worship, the last report did deal with the well, and it did talk about water supply as far as providing 753 customers, but it did not, and does not have the focus of, okay, if we were to transfer the infrastructure to the district, does it meet district standards? If not, what's required? And so there have been miscellaneous reports. Again, I'd have to look them up. I don't have them to hand, and I don't know how many exactly, because some of those are just produced for 753. Regardless, the water comptroller and council has indicated a study that clearly gets the information you need is required, and 753 and the water comptroller have indicated that they will underwrite it.
Sounds good. Well, I'm particularly keen too on making sure that this is a very detailed study, and that, for instance, there was discussion at a meeting that there's some households that don't even have shut-offs at the property line. Well, that's clearly dysfunctional for a water system, so I think it has to get so detailed as to actually check to make sure that every household that's attached has a shut-off, because that's a huge expense that we'll have to add to it. And if the shut-offs are there, are they functional? So I'm hopeful that the engineering report, when it comes out, will be that detailed, because we should treat this as if it was a for-profit venture that we wanted to invest in. obviously it's not gonna be a for-profit venture, but it's certainly, the more diligence here, the better. Because once we own it, we got a big problem to deal with, so, potentially, if we don't do our homework, so. Okay, motions on the table, additional comments? All those in favor? I thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
So, through you, are we gonna use the same engineer that we've been using to do this?
Not necessarily. I will talk to, I'll consult more with the office of the water comptroller, also Kevin Dickin when he comes in. There is an argument to be made that using the consultant that has done a lot of the work before may reduce the amount payable, but we're not worried about that. Because it's not being paid for by us, by the district.
So someone's gotta pay for it, taxpayers gotta pay for it, or the people living out there, someone's gotta pay for it.
It's coming out of 753 reserves.
But still, someone's gonna pay for it. We could keep the reserves, we could use the reserves for ourselves.
Absolutely. So we will consider all the options with regards to that. And certainly, staff here know your intent as far as providing value for money in everything we do. So we will march ahead in that way. And of course, we'll bring updates up to council as we move forward to this. We are not seeking the Cadillac solution in any sense of the word. As your worship, you mentioned, we need the detail to be there, and we need to be able to validate the detail. And if that means using a third-party consultant, one that's not done the majority of work, and we can make the argument, then that may well be the way to go. And it may not be more money, we don't know. We could be putting out an RFP for that.
Thank you. Okay, under Mayor and Council reports, I'll start off with a quick one here, and that is, I had the opportunity to attend BC Economic Development Association dinner with Councillor Erickson, and I'd like to thank and acknowledge the Chamber of Commerce for that dinner. It was very interesting. We had quite a number of very influential folks in the economic development community of the province, and a number of municipalities were well represented, so that was good. Dale Wielden, who used to be quite involved in Chilliwack, is now the president of the British Columbia Economic Development Association. And the whole point of it was to share concerns and ideas with ministry officials. So there were representatives at that meeting from the Ministry of International Trade, Minister Watt and her staff, representatives from Destination BC. I had the opportunity to meet a number of elected officials from different communities. One of the ones sat next to me at the table, and that was Councillor Susan Chappelle from Squamish. And it would appear there's a very interesting opportunity there. They have such a development boom there that they actually cannot accommodate all the businesses that are applying. So I think there might be a good opportunity to, in a very friendly way, coach some of their business and do so in a way that they're actually supporting us. So there may be some really unique strategic alliance that we can form with Squamish. And if a business that is looking in Squamish cannot locate in Squamish, maybe they can give us a friendly referral. Because of course, we're further away from Vancouver, but the natural environment is very similar with the beauty of the region. So that's kind of a unique problem for our community to have, but Squamish is one of the fastest growing communities in British Columbia, and so that's an interesting problem they're having. There were representatives there from the Ministry of Jobs, Tourism, Innovation, Ministry of Small Business, and Red Tape Reduction. There is actually a ministry that has red tape reduction in there, and so I had a good chat with a couple of the staff there. And one of the things that I talked to staff about on that issue, on the issue of red tape, was there's a huge number of properties in Hope that are in a slide zone, a flood zone, or in archaeological red zone. So I said, you know, from a municipal point of view, there certainly would be an inherent advantage for the province to streamline that process, because there's a huge number of properties in the District of Hope now, which on which development is more difficult because they have now been classified as an archaeological red zone. Now they're for the most part properties that have been previously developed, So if there was any archaeological significance, it was already disturbed long ago. So there's just, I think there's opportunities for the province to work with the First Nations and municipalities and streamline the process to make it less onerous for property owners. And they heard that question, they heard that comment before from other representatives, so I think that was reasonably well received. The other neat thing, and I'm sure Councillor Erickson will speak to this point, and that is Minister Watt and her staff person, Mr. John McDonald. She is the Minister of International Trade, as Council is well aware. And what the interesting point is that their question, the Minister's first question and Mr. McDonald's first question was, so how's that Barrick Gold Ski Hill project coming along?
They remember.
And yeah, they were quite excited about it. Minister Watt is all fired up to help us with that. So further to that, Mr. Forlowski dealt with that right away. I requested that we set up a meeting with McKay Edwards and Mr. Adamson, Regional District Director. Once the final time is confirmed, all of council would be welcome to attend. But I think there's a huge, unique opportunity here. Mr. McKay Edwards, as council is aware, is the consultant that is hired to essentially coordinate resort development there if indeed it ever happens. But the issue is that obviously Barrick Gold is a gold company. They're not there to develop resorts. They were toying with the idea, but there is huge foreign investment available now, and that's of course where Minister Watt comes in. So she has some impressive contacts in Asia and Europe, and there is a unique opportunity to work with the province where they're kind of beating down our door to help us out. The holdback has been on Barrick Gold's side because they had some major turnover at the upper level, so I wouldn't call it confusion, but there's changeover and administrative changes, and of course all those natural things attached to that. So the purpose of the meeting will be to talk to Mr. Edwards and see how we can help in trying to fast track this process, because this may be a fairly small window, who knows, but the window is there, so it's worth looking at. And I guess that is as short as I get today. I did attend a regional library meeting. The budget did pass. It was a 2.8% increase, and the requisition to the regional, the District of Hope will be less actually, because it's the funding formula is a fairly complex instrument, as council is aware, and is based on volume and all sorts of other factors. So actually our increase will be less than that according to their formula. So that's good news. And of course, one of the big challenges at the regional library is a lot of their resources come from the United States, and with our currency much lower than it was a year or two ago, that poses interesting challenges for supplies for the regional library. Reference material is much more expensive for the most part, and so on and so forth. So that's that. Now, actually, if I can get Councillor Erickson to kick it off, because you're probably going to have some discussion about the economic development dinner.
Yeah, thank you, through you. I was really happy to be able to be one of the persons that the Chamber asked to go, Mayor Victor, to this Economic Development Association meeting. The Economic Development Association in BC started about 5 or 6 years ago, and it had 130 members to start with, and now it's 525. And the room was full. There was no spare, and it was a great meal too, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And Shirley Bond opened the meeting. Mr. Shirley Bond, she opened the meeting, and she said, BC is the only province in Canada that's going to have a balanced budget for the next 3 years. The only province. Saskatchewan was forecast. Now they're back to $1 billion deficit as of this year. So she said, we are in a very good economic plan for BC. And I didn't realize that did you know the garment industry is booming in BC? It's such a boom in BC, the garment industry, making garments. I didn't realize that until she said that. But she said, we have a very robust economy because we have a diverse economy. We're not just fixed with oil and farming like Alberta is. We have so many, what did she say here? There's film, there's forestry, there's mining, foresters on the way where we basically, she said, we are capped on our fiber. We have a shortage of fiber right now. And Minister Watts and I had a meeting. We talked for at least 20 minutes, half an hour, one-on-one, and she went along with what the mayor told us about. She remembered us right away regarding this mine and the resource. And then she went and she said, you guys in Hope have a short opportunity to get the funds that the federal government is giving to BC. She said, you must be ready by the beginning of March, end of February, beginning of March. She said, this is so crucial because the federal government has promised BC lots of money for infrastructure. And she said, it's got to be in, and you guys got to be ready by March. She said, March, and she kept emphasizing March. Then she gave me her card, it's right here. She said, there's my number, you can call me anytime if you have some. She said, we're willing to help. But it was a very good news, quite expensive for the chamber to send us, but it was very, very good, really, because it really opened up avenues. And how, just one thing, just as an example, how it opened up avenues as people get to know you. I was sitting beside Fortis guy. He was one of the higher-ups in Fortis. And we were just visiting as there were meals being exchanged, and he said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I go council District of Hope. And I said, what do you do? He said, well, I'm some chairman of Fortis. And I said, you know, 5 years ago, I applied to Fortis to get a gas line under the railroad over to my house. And I said, they gave me a number to call, and I could never get through. So he picks up his phone. He said, what's your phone number? What's your address? Puts it in. Oh yeah, that doesn't seem to be too bad. Never thought nothing of it. This was Monday. Monday night at what time do we leave? 9:30? Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, I got a call from Fortis saying we're going to have people out there to check and see if we can put a gas line across the golf course bridge to feed the golf course, and then come down my road, or underneath, we're going to see what's the best road. She said, we'll let you know in 2 weeks. So see how when you know people and you have friends with people, you can really get things done. It was really impressive. And I think you guys, the main thing I have to bring here, Miss Watts or whatever, Teresa Watts, she said to us, make sure you get your ducks in line by the beginning of March. Because if you need any infrastructure, if you need things, that's the time you need to have it, if you want to get a head start. And right away, my mind went to the gas station coming in that we talked about, you know, funding for the sewer, or funding for this sewer project here. We need to get it. Anyway, and I missed the ratepayers meeting. Thank you, Heather, for taking it for me. I actually forgot about it. I remembered Wednesday and I forgot about it. And I was in Alberta looking at helping my little granddaughter out, babysitting her for a while, so it was nice. Anyway, that's my report.
Thank you, Fowler. Appreciate it. Councilor Medlock, I understand you have some exciting news from
Yeah,
Ben and Joel.
thanks, sure. So we had our eventual meeting a couple weeks ago. I guess the exciting news, we'll start off with that. There's a done deal with a company called Diamond Steel that are relocating their operation from Alberta, and they're coming to the Emil Anderson shop and yard. So that'll be effective March 1st. Plans to operate by May. So we'd just like to welcome Diamond Steel to our community. They'll be running 3 shifts, 60 people per shift, so approximately 24 new jobs, and that's really good to have in the community. So that was a lot of work Advantage Hope put into that, and of course the deal through Emil Anderson and whatnot to lease the land. So that's excellent news to hear that that land's been vacant for a while, so it's good to see that they'll be utilized in creating some jobs.
Good. Stealing business.
Yeah. Other things we talked about at the Advantage Hope meeting was there's several grant applications in the works. This is the time of year it seems to be that all the applications go in for the year, so there's 6 or 7 different applications in. Some of them for like the summer jobs programs for you know, students to work at the visitor info center and whatnot. Also through the Destination BC program, we've applied under the banner of Hope Cascades and Canyons, as well as the Scenic 7 regions. That Scenic 7 will be Hope through to Coquitlam along Highway 7 and all the communities along there. And then Hope Cascades and Canyons, of course, the region around Boston Bar, Yale, Hope, Laidlaw, Sunshine Valley. So there's 2 pools of money that we're hoping to be able to capitalize on, and those will be for marketing projects. There's also 3 main consumer shows that we're partnering with other organizations. So the first one I think is in Seattle, and then there's the Great Big Vancouver Outdoor Show, and one in Chilliwack as well. So Advantage Hope is partnering with Hell's Gate, Fraser River Raft, Hope Mountain Center, Yale Historic Society. I feel like I'm missing one. But the presence at these shows is huge. We take up a lot of booths, give out a lot of Hope swag, so everybody's walking around there with a Hope bag. And the position that we have at the Vancouver Outdoor Show is supposed to be fantastic. It's where basically people come in, and we're gonna have Brian McKinney right there, and we're gonna direct people down towards the Hope booth, so it's gonna be one of the first things they see. So that's pretty good. The other thing that we're doing very shortly is, they're called business walks. So we've talked a bit about business walks at Advantage Hope for a while. It's sort of promoted by the Ministry of Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training. Excuse me. It was a program that was pioneered by the Central Okanagan Economic Development Commission. And basically what they do is they get leaders in the community together, hit businesses hard one day, I guess you could say, and they will go to the businesses, talk about their successes, their barriers to success, possible solutions, and really gather current relevant information, because that seems to be a problem that we talk about a lot at the Advantage Hope meetings, is that the information that's available to make decisions based on, you know, census data is out of date. It's 3, 4, 5 years old. And it doesn't really help you make decisions today, because a lot has changed in that time. So this is a way to get information from the local businesses that is current. And the idea is to get into the habit of being on top of those business walks every year, so that you can start charting things. And I know that Adam at the Chamber is very interested in helping with that. He's got a research background, so that's going to be great. So basically, you know, we ask, how's business? What do you like about doing business in Hope? And what can be done better? So a few questions, right? So that's February 25th is the day that was picked, from 9 till 1. So we're asking members of council, some senior staff, Community Futures will be involved, or Chamber of Commerce, we hope, some provincial representatives. We'll all get together, have a meeting, and then in teams of 2 go out and canvass the community, and just do that till about 1 o'clock, I guess. Well, come back before 1 and then compile information. So I think council is all invited, and we'll all definitely be there. I think that's a Thursday that day. So if anybody is available, please let us know, and we can arrange to have that happen. The Advantage Hope AGM I mentioned earlier in the day here will be March 23rd at 6 p.m. at the golf course. And we have a special guest speaker, Marcia Walden, who is the president and CEO of Destination BC. And she'll be doing a presentation about what tourism means to the economy, and where Hope fits within Destination BC's marketing campaign. So all of council, of course, is invited to attend, so is the public, and it should be a good evening. Marcia's a good speaker, not like me.
No, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. And I guess the work plan was adopted for 2016, which was mostly founded from the strategic planning sessions that we took with the public input and whatnot. So that was formalized into a work plan and adopted. And I think that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Councillor.
Out of voice.
Yeah, sounds like you and I have the same problem today. Councillor Stewart.
Okay, so I attended the chamber dinner on the 27th, and I really enjoyed my time there. Good turnout, good food, good company. I really enjoyed the evening, and I'm looking forward to the next chamber dinner on the 17th of February. I also attended the graduation of the welding students at Hope Secondary School. There were 12 people that took the welding program, and we have 12 graduates with their C ticket and ready to go. There was special thanks given to mayor and council for their support for the welding program, and just how, I'm not sure exactly how we all facilitated, but I know that just being positive about something new in the community really does help. So special thanks went to mayor and council. And the students were really, really excited about having this opportunity. They now have a skill that they can use in their life. I also attended the Crystal River Court Association meeting. It's the second meeting that they've had, and at this particular meeting, they just set up their directors, their secretary and their treasurer, etc. And it was a nice positive meeting. Looks like they're moving forward and hoping to have a nice place to live soon. Also went to the ratepayers meeting. Of course, there was conversations about the potholes in the community and safety for people walking. They've also initiated conversations with Park Manor, where they're hoping to donate some time to help clean up their gardens and maybe help out in other ways at the manor. There was a concern about a recent ad in the Hope Standard from BC Hydro regarding pesticide spraying in the community, and just wanted me to mention that they have a little bit of a concern about the types of pesticides that are being advertised to be sprayed. And another question about the SOFI report, when that would be released and how it can be accessed. I also took the UBCM survey for First Nations relations in our community, and was slightly embarrassed to say that I actually didn't know a lot of the answers. So thank you, Mr. Fordlowski, for putting me on to Donna Bellingham. We had a great conversation about the types of things that we do in the community, and some things that we could possibly look at in the future. As well as I'm attending the First Nations 101 class tomorrow in Chilliwack, put on by the FVRD, and between communities and relationships with our First Nations communities. So that's pretty much it for 2 weeks.
Your worship, to answer the question, if I can provide information to yourselves and the public, again, the SOFI report comes out generally the same time as the audit results in the yearly report, so you're looking at the summer time frame.
Summer.
And they are published online, and the last one is online as well.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Councillor Smith,
Other than missing the Brigade Days meeting tonight, I'm missing the report.
double book,
Yeah.
life as president.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And, yeah, go ahead.
I forgot to say, Shirley Bond said that in the next, by 2020, BC will require 1 million new employees. 1 million new employees by 2024. Where are we gonna get them from?
They're already coming. Yeah, and just as well as a number of other council members, I attended the chamber meeting the other day too. That it's a 3-part series as was discussed, and so we listened to Mr. Brett Gardner, former mayor, Fraser Valley, former council member and current business owner, and then Chuck Strollan was pretty good. On the 17th, I've been asked to speak on behalf of the community at that one. So if you're tired of hearing me speak at functions, that's okay. The dinner will be good enough to put up with me, because that dinner was awesome at the first one. For $10, a dinner like that was great. That was a good.
Through you two, we also have Dale Wilton.
Yeah.
He's gonna be speaking, and Mayor John Les.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a
Tickets are on sale, your worship?
concept.
Right here.
But Mayor Victor's gonna be the first online to speak,
Yeah.
so it'll set the stage for a great meeting.
Yeah. It'll be a positive one.
Yeah.
Lots to be excited about. Can explain to people why I'm so positive. Some people, I'm irritating some people with my positivity. We can.
Cheesy jokes.
Well, cheesy jokes, but that's okay. That's a package deal. You get that when you get me. So, anyways, item 9A, information for first one. Okay. Second, Councillor Smith, Councillor Ertz. All those in favor? Thank you. Now, question period. Any questions from the public pertaining to the agenda? Ms. Burley?
Not so much a question as a statement.
Yeah.
753 water users had another meeting.
Mhm.
It was made clear to them that the utmost importance is to pay your water bill, your water coming out of your tap, pay your bill. I don't wanna knock on your door.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's gonna be a problem anymore.
Ms. Burley, the enforcer.
And as for your comment about the shut-offs being of utmost importance, there's an awful lot of old, broken and non-functioning shut-offs in the District of Hope. I don't think it's a matter of utmost importance.
Well, in my opinion, it is, because if you have no shut off to a home and there's a flood, that's a major problem if you don't know where to shut the water off. You have to shut off 100 homes to deal with one. So that is just a routine due diligence kind of matter where we have to know what we're getting. If we take over that system, we want no surprises. Now is also the time, if we get a very in detail engineering report, now is the time we can talk to the province and say, hey, Mr. Thrones, can you help us get a grant here to help upgrade the water system to a proper municipal standard? I'm just not keen on taking on someone else's junk, is really the...
Oh, I understand that, but we know where the shut-offs are, we have them mapped, we know where they are. They might not turn off one single house, they might turn off 6, but we know where they are. The district also has, within their water system, shut-offs at older properties in town that don't function. So is that of an utmost importance for you to be on fixing immediately as well?
Well, it'll all be revealed during the engineering report, so, most certainly. Valid points. Additional comments? I guess next meeting will be February 22nd, so I look forward to seeing most of you at that meeting. Motion to adjourn, please. Councilor Medlock, Councilor Erickson. All those in favor? Okay, no one opposing that.
Sounds like a record.